Welcome to Cinemaholics. You know, I could use a vacation. Heck, I could use some friends. And so I'll start by saying I'm John Negroni, and with me I have someone he's a work friend, though, not a vacation friend. He's Will Ashton.
Hey, I didn't know we were doing existential crises on this show now, but that's good to know for future reference.
I'm trying to get into the zone. I saw Vacation Friends so long ago. It was early last week. And so I'm trying to get back into like that mode of the movie where, you know, Lil Rel Howery, he starts the movie. He doesn't have vacation friends. The vacation hasn't really started yet. I feel that way right now.
Yeah, he only has work friends.
He does. He has a close-knit group of work friends. They really leaned into that, which was cool. Like, they didn't do the I love you man thing where he's a schmuck until he meets John Cena.
Yeah, but he has like kind of like a healthy work relationship where he's like,
yeah,
I'm friends with you. I want the best for you guys.
Also, you're my employees.
But I'm going to keep you at... Yeah, but I'll keep you at distance because I'm your boss, and like I'm not gonna like try to act otherwise. So that's probably healthy for their relationship, but doesn't give them a lot of friends outside of work, I guess.
Well, in addition to talking about the nature of friendships and the existential crises of vacations, we're going to talk about this movie, Vacation Friends. It's out on Hulu. Now, we're doing this a little bit late, and so just to explain that real quick, we did our Candyman episode. Originally, we wanted to do Vacation Friends as part of the Candyman episode. Usually we talk about 3 to 5 films. We only talked about one that week, although I did also talk about He's All That for like 5 minutes or something. But it was a shame. We just couldn't get to it. I should say this is the busiest time of the year for me. I'm not watching a ton of movies at the moment, and that's probably for the best because TIFF is next week, and so I'm about to be watching tons of movies. And all that said, I did catch Vacation Friends. Will saw Vacation Friends. We did want to talk about it. We just had to delay this conversation. We hope it's a good one. So we're doing a little bonus thing for this movie. Like I said, it's out on Hulu. And I'll be honest, well, I didn't know that much about this movie going into it. I didn't write a review or anything. I didn't really look at, I didn't study this one in the lead up. So I actually have the Wikipedia page up in front of me. I'm going to do my best to, not just replicate what I'm reading here. You know what I'm saying? Actually give the listener some real stuff here. But yeah, how would you describe this movie, Will? I mean, obviously it's a comedy. It's a buddy comedy, right? But yeah, what's unique about it?
Well, the thing that's, I guess, most disarming about the film is that it has the sort of feel of a mid to late 2000s raunchy comedy. Kind of the sort of feel that I felt during Mike and Dave Need Wedding Dates, where it's like, oh, this has an almost nostalgic quality to it. It feels like the sort of thing that studios would pummel out 6 or 8 times in, say, 2008 or 2011 or something.
Can I add something to that to amplify your point? This movie does something that so many of those movies from that era do, right? Where it starts off, it's sort of hook of a premise, and then it becomes a wedding movie. That's very, very studio comedies between the years 2004 and 2015, in my opinion.
Right. And kind of amplified, I guess, with the Hangover trilogy. That really kind of became, I guess, the most popular example of that outside of maybe Wedding Crashers.
Yeah.
But I mean, it does feel like a sort of nostalgic film like that. And I think part of it is because I believe, if I'm not mistaken, this film was in development for a while. I remember at one point, I think Mark Wahlberg and Ice Cube were attached to it.
I don't know about that, but hey, like I said, I got the Wikipedia page in front of me, so grain of salt and all that. But what I'm seeing here is that Chris Pratt and Anna Faris back in, that's how you know it was a while back, they were actually going to star in the film with Steve Pink directing. It still had a screenplay by the Mullen brothers, who are still co-writers in this movie. I think though that they retooled it a while after their involvement. But yeah, Chris Pratt and Anna Faris, this was way back in 2014. So we're looking at the year of Guardians of the Galaxy launching Chris Pratt into A-lister. This is right, the year that Parks and Recreation finished its run. Big year for Chris Pratt. I think Anna Faris at this point was at her peak with the sitcom Mom. Great sitcom Mom. And yeah, this movie never came out. Or never happened.
Now that you mention it, I could definitely see whatever that would be, 2012 Chris Pratt and Anna Faris in these roles.
Right. They were still married at this point, right? So because they didn't get divorced until years later.
Yeah, and I think I think big screen wise, I think they only did like 2 films together, right? Take Me Home Tonight and Movie 43. Neither of which I'm sure they're super proud of.
That's so funny because I've seen both those movies. I totally forgot because I was about to say like, oh, it's kind of a shame we never got them on screen together. They're married and all that. Mm-hmm. Totally forgot about that. So that's embarrassing on my part.
Well, Take Me Home Tonight was where they met, if I'm not
mistaken. It was shelved, right? Because they met way before that movie came
right.
out. But that movie was like way, way delayed. It was so delayed that Topher Grace was the leading man. That's how you know.
Mm-hmm. And Dan Fogler was like they were trying to push him as like the scene stealing side character.
Yeah.
And this was like whatever, like 2009 when the movie came out, and we were like, oh, Dan Fogler. I thought we were done with him in like 2007.
I know. I had a soft spot for Fogler myself in those days because I remember being kind of like, oh yeah, But I think at this point, because I remember the movie that really did the guy in probably was Good Luck Chuck. That's like what 2007, 2008, or even before that, Balls of Fury.
More likely,
that's a movie I like unironically.
I think. Oh really? I think the movie that actually kind of killed his career was Mars Needs Moms. But
same year as Take Me Home Tonight, wasn't it? That's like 2010, 2011.
Indirectly, I think yes, they came out the same year. That was like kind of the death knell, and like he's a marquee comedy star. That point of his career, but I mean, I'll give him credit. He is, I think, unironically the best thing about the Fantastic Beasts films.
I was about to say that. Yeah, the Fantastic Beasts. He's actually probably my favorite character in those.
Yeah. But
he's not in this movie.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's a tangent.
Yeah, how far away we went so down a hole there. Yeah.
Did I answer your question about Vacation Friends?
I think so. I mean, I guess what's unique about it is, it feels like a relic. I think you're right. It's just sort of take a couple of like normal straight-laced characters, mix them up with outlandish comedic characters, right? What's interesting about it too is, so our straight man here is Lil Rel Howery. And I would say that probably since Get Out, Lil Rel Howery has been getting like a much bigger profile as an actor. Obviously, he's been around doing great stuff. I think like vast majority of people, in addition to Get Out, would recognize him from The Carmichael Show, which I never watched myself, but I know it has its fans, right?
Yeah.
That said, he's been in a lot of good stuff. I thought he was kind of funny in Space Jam: A New Legacy. He had that kind of like role as the announcer.
I totally forgot he was in that. I mean, the only thing I mean, outside of Get Out, like I said, I haven't seen Gerard Carmichael's sitcom, but I remember, obviously since it came out this year, Bad Trip, he stood out. Yeah. Great character in that. Free Guy, I really liked him in. I know Free Guy, not your favorite, but one of my favorite Howery performances to this point. And I liked him in The Photograph. I didn't see the Photograph. I thought he was pretty good in the not great film Uncle Drew. But I'm blanking on what else he's been in recently.
Uncle Drew was good. He was in Tag around that same time.
Oh, that film.
Yeah, that really fun film about friendship. Even though
that's another film, a little
bit older, that everybody liked, right?
Another late in the game raunchy comedy that involves a wedding.
It wasn't that raunchy.
It was trying to be. It was trying, kind of.
Good Boys was more raunchy than that. He was in that, and then also and Good Boys was kind of forgettable. Brittany Runs a Marathon. I thought he had a fun role in that movie. I don't remember if you saw that.
I did see that. I saw her marathon running. Yeah. I saw it in the theater.
She did it.
She did it. She ran a marathon.
She ran a marathon. Spoilers.
Didn't that win like the Grand Jury Prize or something at Sundance?
Did it really?
It won
that
something.
Was 2 years ago. So,
like Amazon bought.
I guess I could look it up.
Amazon bought it for like $20 million or something, right?
That was so funny. Yeah. And it was because I remember I was at that Sundance, and I remember people were talking about the movie. I did not I don't remember people being over the moon about it. That was very surprising to me. But anyway, Lil Rel Howery was in that, and I think Lil Rel Howery, he's full of hits. I think he's very funny. He's got good comedic chops. In this movie, he's doing the straight character, so he's not like the center of all the jokes being told. He's kind of the butt of the joke at times. What I like about this movie, though, is he's not always the butt of the joke. A lot of the times, he's kind of just like smoothing along with the mayhem, like in the drug sequence. He's not like the victim of it. He kind of, unwittingly does something he wasn't supposed to. I think he's kind of interesting. John Cena. John Cena is in this movie. He's like the other big, like he and Lil Howery are the most recognizable people in here. Unless you're a big fan of Insecure, we have Yvonne Orji, who, you know, I don't know if she was a main character on that show, but I think she was on like all the seasons. I haven't seen Insecure, but I've seen her a bunch. And I know people are big fans. I think the only movie I've seen her in is probably like Night School and Spontaneous. She had a role in that movie. The really good YA movie from last year where kids explode.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm trying to remember if we talked about it.
Spontaneous?
I think I might have. Yeah.
Oh, we definitely talked about it. Okay. I remember because I hadn't seen the whole thing when we reviewed it and had
That's right, yes.
caveats about that. But yeah.
Yeah, your caveats had caveats. But yeah, she's in this. She's funny. We have Meredith Hagner. Meredith Hagner, yes, who was in Palm Springs last year. And sure, before Palm Springs, she wasn't on my radar. I think she was like a daytime soap opera star before. And then she had been in a couple of sitcoms.
I don't know about that. I mean, I knew her. I mean, Men at Work. A lot of people know her from Search Party, which I've been meaning to catch up on. I still haven't
seen that. Yeah.
I've seen, I think, 1 or 2 seasons of it. She is quite good in it, and she was she was a part of this film I was most excited for, because I feel like when I first saw her, I think it was in the 2015 David Cross film, like what was it called, Beats, or I forget what the movie that David Cross directed like a while back, and she was like the lead in it, and I remember thinking like, this movie's not that good, but she's really good at like this like broad, like Southern type character, and I was like, I gotta keep her on my radar because she's clearly like talented, and Hollywood needs to do something with her. And I think they have with Search Party, and to a lesser extent this film. But I'm still waiting for that role where she really gets to shine, because I think she is a very talented actress.
Well, I will say she was in Horse Girl from last year with Alison Brie. Not a huge role, but you know. And then also, you know, we mentioned Palm Springs, but she was also in The Oath. She was in Set It Up. She was in Ingrid Goes West. She's always like, this kind of character in the periphery. And I can't say I know which one you're talking about where she's a lead. I'm going to say for Vacation Friends, she's not a side character. I think she's one of the main characters.
Well, no, in this film she is. In other films, she's often a side character. And the film I was talking about before I looked it up is called Hits.
Hits. Okay. I haven't heard of that movie. No,
it's not very good.
I thought I knew the ones David Cross has directed, so I'll have to look into it.
He only directed one, and that's it.
Okay. I thought he directed something else.
No, you're thinking of Bob
Odenkirk. Was it Sundance in like 2014? Am I losing it?
I don't know what you're thinking of. I think that might be the film you're thinking of, because this came out in like 2014 or 2015.
Did it change its name? The movie I'm thinking about, I'm certain I think it came out 2014 Festival Circuit. I think I saw it 2015. I don't remember because I didn't know who Meredith Hagner was at the time. I remember Michael Cera was in it.
I think we're thinking of the same film.
Okay, and I just don't have the name right. That makes sense.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm looking up to see if it was initially called something else. I'm not seeing another title for it, but yeah, it's called Hits.
Okay, I'll take your word for it. I think I'm just messing up on the name, but there you go. Meredith Hagner. I'm going to say for Vacation Friends, she's my favorite character. Whenever she was on the screen in this movie, whenever she was like, I think she's the funniest character. I think she's the most fun character. And, you know, she has I don't know. I think her and John Cena's like little Waffle House like relationship, I thought was kind of charming. I like this movie. I think it's kind of mediocre in a lot of ways. It's not the funniest. It's not funny enough to like outright recommend for the movie it kind of is, but you know, I sat through it and I wasn't bored or anything. I kind of sat through it. I laughed along here and there. It was very like Sunday matinee feel, you know, this thing just came on TBS and you know, you're already at the gym, you know, like might as well keep watching while you're on the treadmill. That's this movie.
TBS is a very good pool, I guess. That does actually track, I think. It will be a TBS favorite. If it wasn't bought by Hulu, I think it would have been a TBS favorite. And I do agree with you with Meredith Hagner's character. I feel like, I mean, even though I don't think this genre has altogether progressed, I think something that has progressed in this genre, and going back to Mike and Dave Need Wedding Dates, I think that was something true with that film with Aubrey Plaza, is that I think we're finally at a point where we're finally letting funny women be funny in these movies. Like for a long time, like anytime there would be like a woman, they're kind of like the arms crossed, like, oh, like they're like judging the boys kind of thing. And I felt like that was always kind of, it just felt insulting because it didn't really let a lot of like funny women get the chance to do funny things. And I like that in this character, she is able to just be like a complete psychopath.
Yeah, well, and you mentioned that, and we mentioned Wedding Crashers, right? To me, she feels like
a
modern update to that character.
Absolutely,
because that character's got issues that we don't have to get into. Isla Fisher, who plays the part super well in Wedding Crashers, very memorable performance, obviously. But yeah, Hagner, like the way she's written in this movie is like miles better.
Yeah, I guess I'm thinking more of like The Hangover, where I forget the actress's name, but she's like a very funny actress, but she just has to
Heather Graham.
No. Like Ed Helm's wife. I forget her name, but she's like kind of like your stereotypical like stick in the mud sort of character. And I felt like that was like, regressive in a way that felt like we're finally kind of getting past that now. But
yeah, I kind of remember who you're talking, because I don't remember the actress, but I remember the role, right, where she was just kind of the stick in the mud. Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say.
Yeah, and in this movie, like, what I like about this movie is like nobody's the stick in the mud in this, right? Like the setup for this movie is that Lil Rel Howery's character and Yvonne Orji's character, they're their boyfriend, girlfriend. Her parents don't approve of him, and they kind of look down on him. But he's a successful guy, runs a construction company, but they think he's like a construction worker. Annoying thing about this movie, though, where they make it sound like it's bad to be a construction worker, or it's like something to be ashamed of. I was like, okay, that's kind of a weird thing. Like they play that up in the movie of like, it's like, oh, nobody recognizes that I own a construction company. And I was like, okay. And then they bring in the construction workers and they're just like, oh, they're family. And I don't know. I think they go to lengths to try to like bomb it a little bit, like BALM. What do you think?
I don't remember necessarily the film looking down on him for his profession so much as this future father-in-law looking down on him and jokes about how he was so disapproving, but maybe I'm just forgetting.
I think the movie is following him being frustrated that he's being perceived as not good enough, and so being a construction worker is not good enough. I guess that's why I took it that way, right? Where he's just like, nobody understands that in reality I own a business, as if like, being a blue collar worker or something to scoff at. I don't know. I'm not hyper criticizing the movie or anything for it. It's just something I picked up on.
Yeah, I might push back on that a little bit. I didn't really catch that vibe. I thought they were pretty forgiving in that way, and even the one character in this film that is disapproving kind of expectedly comes around on him and his blue collar ways, as they were. But I don't know. I might push back on what you're saying there.
I'm just saying, maybe I just want to be a construction worker. That's I think it's,
no shame in that.
Let's do that.
Yeah.
But honest day's work. But yeah, so they're a couple. They just got to Mexico, and he's got this plan that he wants to propose to her and do all these things, and everything kind of goes wrong. They have this like hotel guy. I wish I knew the actor's name, but I absolutely loved his like little bit. I thought it was really funny that they do with him. And matter of circumstances happen that they lose their room at this 5-star resort hotel. One of the funniest jokes probably of this thing is like how that stuff kind of comes about. But as luck would have it, there is a couple that's kind of like in, nearby, and they overhear their problems. This couple, of course, being John Cena's character and Meredith Hagner's character, Kyla and Ron. And they overhear and they're like, hey, come stay with us. And they have this big suite. And then the vacation turns into like this big hoopla thing, right? So they take lots of drugs, they go on an adventure. And I was kind of like confused by the movie because they like really fast forward through the vacation. This movie is called Vacation Friends, right? And in the beginning, I'm like, all right, I'm on vacation with these people. They're becoming friends. I got it. And then we get to the point where they're like, well, the vacation's almost over. And I'm confused because I'm like, well, are they going to go on another vacation? It's only been 20 minutes. And I was like, what's going on here? I got scared. And then we find out that most of the movie is them not on vacation and being friends. It's what happens after you make vacation friends. That's right. They become wedding crashers. And that's what I'm saying. Like the whole movie. So like they have their big wedding, and then John Cena and Meredith Hagner's characters crash the wedding, and it turns into that. And it's that movie, and it's fine, I guess. I don't know. What did you think of the whole setup of it? Do you think it kind of works out?
I guess one thing that I push back on that I've seen from other people's reactions is that I thought the first 15 or 20 minutes of this movie were genuinely awful. And I thought as the movie went along, it got a little bit better because we got more established with the characters, particularly John Cena and Meredith Hagner's characters. But I thought all the setup was pretty bad.
What was bad about it? I liked it. I thought it was fun.
I just thought it was so woefully generic, and like it just felt like the very predictable, tired setup that we get from that was nostalgic for me in a bad way. Like it felt like the tired tropes that we've seen from these movies done in a way that wasn't particularly creative or imaginative. And I don't think that stuff moves away once we get away from the actual quote unquote vacation of the film. But I think the fact that John Cena and Meredith Hagner's characters get to have a little bit more elbow room to kind of play with their characters later in the film, I think made it a little bit more endearing as it went along.
I guess for me, I think like at the beginning stuff, yeah, it's pretty generic. You know, I'm not going to defend it. But I do think that once Cena and Hagner come into the movie and they get established, we spend some time with them before the party gets going. I really liked that stuff. There's a joke involving cocaine where I was like, yes, I'm on board for this movie. Like, keep that up. And to the movie's credit, it keeps that up. It keeps escalating a lot of pretty wild scenarios. Did you think it was generic, though? Like the whole sort of all the stuff they get up to in Mexico? My complaint is that, not that it's generic, but that they just kind of like montage it, which that was frustrating to me because I was like, this should be like the whole movie.
I think during the Mexico scene, there was like one or two funny scenes. And then later on, the actual kind of stuff that I found funny or amusing came into play, which I guess is different than how other people feel about the film.
I guess that's not how I feel about the. I mean, to me, it felt like the best stuff is in the beginning, like the first half hour. And then the rest of the movie, it's not that it's bad. It's just, I thought the jokes were coming, like the successful jokes were coming a little bit less frequently. It sounds like that's not the case for you. It's subjective, obviously, and we don't want to give away these jokes for obvious reasons. But it sounds though that, like, I don't know, I'm not like super praising this movie. I'm getting the sense that you're not praising it that much either. Are we close on this?
I think you might be slightly higher than I am, but I think we're more or less on the same page.
It seems like we kind of dislike it the same amount, but like different parts of it in different ways.
Yes. Yeah, I think we're flipped, but I think we have like the same reaction, but for different reasons. Like I think you found it amusing and then it kind of burnt out. I think it starts off really rough and then it becomes a little bit more charming as we get to know and like the characters more.
Sure. We did agree that like the use of the construction worker friends thing was at least interesting. I liked it. I don't know where you fall on it ultimately, but I think like, yeah, I mean, so that stuff does happen later. And, you know, I'll give the movie that. I think I just get like, the burnt out for me really is this whole like, now this is a wedding movie when it doesn't need to be. We've got wedding movies. We see so many comedies about weddings. I don't care.
Well, we have a lot of comedies about vacations too.
Well, yeah, but they called it Vacation Friends. That's it's the bait and switch. That's the thing that I think that's what it is. If this movie had been called Wedding Friends, I'd been like, yeah, let's go. They're at a wedding. They're friends. But no, that's not what it. I mean, this movie should have been called Wedding Friends because there's like two weddings.
Should have been called Honeymoon Friends.
No, they weren't on a honeymoon.
That's a sequel. I'm writing in advance. Yeah.
Good job. Yes. Yeah. Yes. Good. That's a good idea for your sequel. There's also a twist in this movie that like everyone's going to see coming. They don't do a great job at hiding it. I mean, I'm sure some people won't see it coming. Like our dads, if they were watching this, they'd be just sort of like, whoa, that came out of nowhere. We'd just be like kind of chuckling to ourselves a little bit. But, you know, it doesn't kill the movie or anything. They actually do use it for a pretty good comedic moment, albeit one that is fantastically stupid because of the behavior of Lil Rel Howery is like, oh, okay, like, the movie's doing that.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, yeah, I wasn't like crazy about that stuff. I think I just like the little like side stories, like the whole like golf game thing, I think was more amusing to me than most of the other things in the film.
I don't like Andrew Batch. Every time I see that guy, he plays the brother. I do not like that actor.
Is he he was like the Vine guy? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I just did the dude like in real life, not great. And then in fiction and entertainment, I'm just like, he's not, I don't know. Like, I just don't like the guy. Maybe if I met him in real life, I'd change my tune. I don't know.
Maybe. But I felt like that scene was like, because there's sort of like at times there's like a kind of Chevy Chase feel to John Cena's character. Like if Chevy Chase got like blown up like the Michelin Man.
Well, I thought you were going to say for Lil Rel Howery, but going through the vacation movies, because those are vacation movies. National Lampoon's Vacation. Do those turn into weddings? No.
But like John Cena has like kind of like that glib, like sort of self-aware, but also like kind of like out of touch vibe that I think Chevy Chase can often have in some of his roles. Not all of them, obviously, but like some of them I think he does. Yeah. I kind of got that vibe from him.
We've avoided talking about Cena a little bit here. And I guess...
Have we?
I mean, we haven't talked about him that much. I mean, every time I've talked about him, I've been like, but Meredith Hagner. And I think the reason for me is because I don't think he's very funny in this movie, but I do think that he's kind of the heart of it. Like, I actually think that like he has some good lines. I think Hagner kind of overshadows him a bit.
I would agree.
It's kind of the same problem I think I had with Blockers, which I think he's good in Blockers. I think he's good in Trainwreck. I mean, his comedic roles are good. I think though, like a movie like Suicide Squad knew exactly what to do with him. I think that's his sweet spot. I do like though that this movie. I know. I think this movie though it's a fun stretch for the character or for the actor as a character.
I think with Suicide Squad, when I found out that role was initially supposed to be for Dave Bautista, I was like, oh, this makes a lot more sense. I think his bright spot was kind of, I guess, already with Trainwreck. Like that was the first time and maybe the only time we were like, okay, this like makes sense for like what his comedic talent should be. I think I'm a little bit softer on him in Blockers than you are, just because I kind of appreciate that his presence in that film automatically makes the movie kind of more heightened and larger in life.
And he does get that great beer keg scene in Blockers.
I think you mean butt chug, but
well, I didn't want to, get censored by my own.
I don't know if does that need to be censored? I guess that's...
I don't know. I mean, kids listen to the program. Well, they don't even know that yet.
Sure.
Let them get through middle school first. Sheesh.
Sure. I think something I think that is underrated about Blockers is that like I think John Cena's presence helps to avoid some of the ickiness of the premise, because he is like by design, John Cena has like kind of like that Schwarzenegger thing where like by him being in the movie, it kind of becomes larger in life because he's like this huge, like goofy, muscle bound guy. And like the fact that he's supposed to be playing like this, like, off kilter suburban dad, like automatically it's just like, okay, like this is a fantasy world because this wouldn't be a suburban dad. And I feel like in that works really well for Blockers because it's just like, okay, this heightens the premise. It doesn't make it like as creepy because this takes place in a kooky fantasy world where it's, or like a like off kilter reality or whatever. And I think that's sort of the case here as well. I kind of get what you mean though with like Suicide Squad. It makes sense. Like he kind of fits in like in a world with like a talking two-legged shark and like a raccoon and a polka dot man. Like it makes sense that he's like walking around in there and all that. But yeah, I don't think Hollywood's quite figured out what to do with him, but I think they're getting close. Like and this role, it makes sense, but I agree with you. I feel like the dialogue wasn't quite strong enough for him to really excel, though he to his credit, I think he commits.
I agree. It's sad because I think most movies he's been in, I'm probably not the biggest fan of. Doolittle and like F9 and all that. And he's kind of interesting in Bumblebee, but I don't know. Do people remember him from Bumblebee?
I think Bumblebee and F9 are like two examples of like they make him boring and it's just like both those films, like he should be very like larger in life and goofy, especially F9. And it's just like, we want him to just be serious and straight. And it's just like, no, like that. If you do that, Cena's just super boring. Like that was his like issue as a wrestler. Like if you like take away like the like goofiness, he's just like a boring like Superman type guy.
I think we agree. I think I do see a version of him being sort of the straight, serious person and it working because I think that is what we get in Suicide Squad. So I think we just have different, I like both, but for my money, I don't know. I'm glad he's doing both.
I think in Suicide Squad, he's like still the doofus though. Like he's still like the like overly patriotic.
Yeah. He's like, I don't know. He doesn't act like a doofus. I think he has two modes. It's sort of like the goofy side of him is different because it's like he has this sort of charm, this sort of like, I could kill you like with like one punch. but like I'm not. I'm nice. I'm John Cena. I'm your friend. And like that's this movie. That's like his mode in this movie. And I think that's his mode in, to an extent in like Trainwreck and all those things. But like in Suicide Squad, it's sort of like I'm taking mercy upon you right now. But it's sort of like he's not self-aware of how like dumb he is, and it's something that kind of works there. Whereas in other movies, like in Bumblebee and F9, he's just supposed to be like, I'm tough, and who's asking? Like, who cares?
I'm out for vengeance and all this stuff. And yeah, I agree. I think he's at his best as a screen presence when he's like you said, like he's like this huge muscle bound guy that could, like rip a person in half, but he's like very vulnerable, in touch with his feelings. And he has like this kind of teddy bear quality, that like a teddy bear that could snap you in half. And I think that's the Cena that I find most appealing. And I think some movies have gotten that and some haven't. And I think this is somewhere sort of like I think it gets that, but doesn't quite take full advantage of that sort of Cena.
It doesn't execute it perfectly every time. I mean, they have it on paper. The guy's like a park ranger, which I thought was kind of fun. This movie does do a lot of comedies. A lot of the big sins of comedies, especially these days, they always give the characters weird jobs, or they give them like the same jobs. Like this character's the PR person, this character is like a high school teacher. This movie actually, they had like some interesting jobs, like owning a construction company. Like that's kind of like, we don't see that a lot. Even Meredith Hagner is kind of like, she works in a doctor's office, but they play a lot of jokes with that. And you like learn more about what that means. The only character with like a boring job is Yvonne Orji. She's just like in finance, but it kind of works to the plot. It's like the point is that she has kind of a blah job.
Yeah. I was just thinking about it now, and I think the best comparison I could think of for like what a Cena role should be is like Mr. Incredible in like the workplace scenes in the first movie, where he's like kind of doing like a boring job, and he's like a suit and tie, but he's like objectively huge and no one really comments on it and all that stuff. I feel like that would be like a role like that for Cena is like what he should do in the future at some point.
That's what sets him apart from The Rock. Right? Because The Rock, he's obviously a big dude, but it's always part of it. Like it's always something that the movies take into consideration and craft around the writing of the character. But with Cena, is obviously there. It's obviously part of the movie, but I don't know, there's more going on with his physicality, I guess, or like, I don't know. It's just different. It's like Pepsi and Coke, right? They just have different flavors, but they're basically the same thing if you really break it down.
Yeah, because like, I mean, of the three wrestlers who are trying to break it, I feel like they're all kind of trying, to their credit, they're all kind of trying to do something different. The Rock, like you mentioned, is going for the straight, traditional kind of action star with like leaning into his charisma and all that stuff. And then you got on the opposite end, like Dave Bautista, who really wants to be like a serious, like award recognized actor, doing stuff like Blade Runner 2049 and Dune pretty soon. And then you got Cena like somewhere in between.
My Spy and Stuber, he was like, all right. And then Army of the Dead, he was like, I'm going for it. I'm going to get that Oscar.
But Cena's like in the middle between those two, where he's like, I think he's self-aware enough where he's like, I'm not going to win an Oscar someday. Or maybe he will. I don't know. Who knows?
I mean, I guess, I don't know. He hasn't been in any movies where I'm just like, oh, that's awards bait. Has he? The Wall? Did people think I was going to get awards?
I think he's not vying for that type of role. I think he's self-aware enough where he's like, he wants to be a movie star, but he's willing to make fun of his image. He's willing to be kind of playing against type almost in some respects.
Playing with fire, you could say?
Well, that's the thing, right? Is that like My Spy, Tooth Fairy, Playing with Fire, there's some weird wrestling invisible contract where every wrestler or action star, Mr. Mom, or what's the Hulk Hogan one? Mr. Mom's the Michael Keaton.
I think it's
Suburban.
It's kind of let's look it up. Hulk Hogan, family movie from the 90s, because it was the 90s, wasn't it?
Right, and then Schwarzenegger had Kindergarten
Suburban
Cop.
Commando.
Suburban Commando, that's it.
There it is.
And then obviously, like I said, Kindergarten
and
Cop
Mr.
for
Nanny.
Schwarzenegger. And Mr.
You were
Nanny.
close.
Yeah, I was mixing the two. And then Mr. Mom is Michael Keaton, known wrestler.
I think Suburban
Michael
Commando
Keaton.
is like an actual action movie.
Yes.
Is it?
I think so, yeah. Yeah, but anyway, there's some invisible wrestler contract where you get a certain level of famous, and it's just like a Hollywood executive comes out and it's just like, now is the time, you must do your kid movie. And like Vin Diesel also had like The Pacifier. I know he's not a wrestler, but Like it's just this weird action movie star thing where it's just like at one point you have to pay the toll and do your obligatory children's family film for whatever reason.
Yeah, but out of all those you just mentioned, I think Pacifier is probably the best one, in my opinion.
Kindergarten Cop's I think the best one, but
I wasn't. Kindergarten Cop owns. You're right.
Yeah,
that's a movie I actually watched a lot as a kid, and I think it probably holds up. I'd have to rewatch it. I remember jokes from that movie, and they still seem funny. So
very quotable film.
It's not a tumor.
Yeah, it's not a tumor.
Yeah, that's relevance. Yeah, but this movie is also a relic of 20th Century Studios. Obviously, 20th Century Fox. It was in production for quite a while. They were going to do a whole thing with it through Fox, and then now it's kind of coming out unceremoniously. I never saw a trailer for this. I didn't see any buzz. Like I didn't see any talk shows or John Cena and Harry and all them coming out and being like, "See our movie." Like there was nothing behind that push. I am curious, like. It's so funny that you mentioned the awards potential of these actors because, I mean, I don't think there's anything really in Cena's filmography that comes close to him getting like an Oscar or something. I don't think he's seeking that out. Batista is interesting because unlike The Rock, because like The Rock, I can't imagine him kind of doing like a Sundance movie, right? Like I can't remember like somebody going to the Cannes Film Festival and like walking the red carpet and there's The Rock. Right. You know what I mean?
Well, from what I can tell with The Rock, he felt really burnt by the experience of Southland Tales and the failure, at least critical failure, that I guess box office failure too of that
Walking
film.
Tall, the remake. Oh, you know what? He was at Sundance a couple of years ago, though. He was there for Fighting with My Family. So
yeah, he produced that, and he was like a cameo in that, right?
Right. He's not. Yeah.
But like he wouldn't do like a starring role. I don't think in a.
He wouldn't do A Stranger Than Fiction or Everything Must Go. He wouldn't do like something kind of against type, something that's kind of or I guess Stranger Than Fiction wasn't against type, but it was just kind of subverting what's interesting about him as an actor and doing something kind of different with it. I think he's just going to keep riding the high of his superstardom until he can't, and then pivot to more producing.
I just think The Rock is at a very boring point in his life and career. I mean, if he's happy, I don't want to take that away from him. But like, didn't the trailer for Red Nose just drop on Twitter today? I didn't watch it.
I think
but
so. I haven't seen it.
It looks so generic. It's just like two actors who, in my opinion, are just like at the most boring points in their career. Him and Ryan Reynolds, and they're just kind of like now they're together and they're both doing their shtick. And it's just like, I'm glad this is on Netflix. I don't have to go to theaters to see this because it just. I mean, I have to assume we're going to review it at some point, but it's just not one I'm particularly looking forward to at this point.
I guess I hear you on that. When coming back to Vacation Friends, though, like I was saying, it just kind of is coming out. It's coming out to a bit of a whimper. I don't think anybody's, chomping at the bit for this movie. I haven't seen anybody be like, you got to see it, right? I haven't seen anybody softly recommend it. I think it's just another, blip in the wind. And I know people were giving Patty Jenkins a lot of heat today. I didn't catch up totally with the discourse of the day, but yeah, people were getting on her case because she was just like, all these straight to streaming movies, I mean, like they're not having an impact. Like people aren't watching these things and remembering that. Like we're getting very few movies a year that like everybody's watching. Like we're losing that water cooler experience for movies. We're barely getting those now. And I think she's right. And I think people were just sort of like, well, we're in a pandemic. It's like, yeah, I'm sure she gets that, but we can still reflect on that. I mean, I think that just the nature of how people watch movies and watch the same movies is changing. And it's, it's kind of sad in some ways.
I didn't see anyone complain about that with Patty Jenkins, but I have seen people doing that with Denis Villeneuve. Denis Villeneuve. And people like, cause like every now and then he's just kind of just like, I would really appreciate it if people would see Dune in theaters because I made it for theaters. And also this is a huge gamble and I would like to make a sequel. And I keep seeing people being like, ugh, how dare he tell people to go see his movies in theaters and all this stuff. And it's just like, I get like it's a pandemic. I don't think anyone should risk their lives or safety to see a movie, right. But like, I get where he's coming from. Like, and I don't think he's wrong. Work. Right. Yeah. It's just like, yeah, obviously he wants his like, $150 passion project gamble movie to be seen and make as much money as possible. Like, I don't think that's unreasonable.
I think where I land on it, Will, is that it's not that I think where I differ with Jenkins and Villeneuve and all this is like, I don't think things have to go to the theater to catch with audiences, to have that sort of broad appeal. Because you can get something like Stranger Things, right, that hits Netflix. Sure, that didn't come to theaters, but people still watched the crap out of that thing. And it made tons of money, and the Duffer Brothers were able to make more of it. That's how things get greenlit. And I think there is this like misunderstanding, and there's this misconception that things have to go to theaters to have a sort of impact. But I think it's just we're entering a new era where I think it has nothing to do with theaters. I think it's just people, the way we're marketing movies, the way we're making movies does not really translate to what people really want. And I think it's a big issue. I think that people really just don't understand how to like, it's just harder than ever to make something and ensure that a lot of people are going to see it, because you can put it in theaters. That doesn't guarantee it's going to be a hit. If anything, it's unlikely it's going to be a hit.
Yeah, well, I mean, with Stranger Things and something like Tiger King last year, those are the exceptions rather than the norm. But Netflix and all these streaming services seem to be under the impression that like that's the gold standard. That's what every one of these things should be. And the sad fact, the reality is that like more often than not, like 9 out of 10 of the things they're going to produce are going to be deemed irrelevant probably in 2 weeks, just because
exactly. Yeah.
I mean, there's just so much competition now, and it's just like, outside of streaming services and movies and shows, there's like TikToks and however many other ways that people can divert their attentions online or elsewhere. And, it's just like, unless there's something controversial or something that's like gonna like cause some chatter, I just think, a lot of these streaming
it's a Marvel
things,
movie and
sure,
even then,
yeah.
I mean, we
like
don't
Black
know how
Widow.
Shang-Chi, today's the first, we're recording this when Shang-Chi is hitting theaters. We have no idea what's going to happen as we talk about this. I'm sure we'll get into it, but Black Widow was not a big success by all regards. And it, say what you will, but I think about the Disney Marvel shows, you haven't seen them, so you don't have an opinion, but those have caught with people. People talk about Loki and WandaVision a ton. Like that show had an impact or those shows had impact. They had cultural impact.
Yeah.
And I think that's Patty Jenkins' point though, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Falcon and Winter Soldier did a little bit.
Everyone at the water cooler is always talking about that show.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Well, while it was coming out, people were talking about it, but yeah, that one quickly faded in the wind. But see, that speaks to it. I think what happened with that, it just wasn't as good. It wasn't as interesting, unfortunately. And by the end, it kind of it felt like the COVID effect of it was a lot more severe. It was also pretty bad with WandaVision because that didn't end well either. But in my opinion, look, all of that said, I think that's Patty Jenkins' point, is that like 20 things come out on Netflix a week and people aren't watching all of it. And like something like Oxygen will come out on Netflix. Good movie. Not amazing, but good. Melanie Laurent, hey, she's back. Let's watch. But then it has no impact whatsoever. And so like good movies aren't having any impact. Great movies they're so good. Like they're so the rare. We have to wait until the end of the year to see them in a lot of cases because of festivals. And then when we get them, there's so much noise. And then it all revolves around like Oscar campaigns. It's just a mess.
Yeah. And other examples, of course, being like Mayor of Easttown or The White Lotus. Those are two other shows from this past summer that I
saw one episode of White Lotus. It was okay. Hey, Mayor of Easttown was cool. Really cool.
Well, my point being like that did break through the mold, and like I've seen people talk about that show, and like Ted Lasso is another example. I think people are catching on and actually talking about that, and that's a streaming thing that's getting notice or attention.
That's the future, HBO.
Yeah.
I think HBO and Apple TV Plus, full disclosure, I work for Apple, but I don't work for Apple TV. I think that those two, the way they're marketing things and the way that they're like choosing the right projects, putting the right money into certain things, it's like that to me it should be a better standard, because when I hear something is going to be like an HBO limited series, I'm a little bit more interested than if it's a Netflix like limited series. You know what I'm saying? Amazon's kind of in between. Like I like Amazon a lot. And I'm really looking forward to Wheel of Time, for example. But I don't know, man. Like, compared to the way HBO has just been pumping out good stuff, and like they have movies that people actually watch. Bad Education. I know people who actually watch that. You know what I mean? But like most Netflix things, people don't watch unless it's like He's All That. I know people who saw He's All That and were like, "That was dumb." Haha.
Yeah. Well, I do think Netflix, like Mitchell's the Machines, even Vivo to some extent, like the family stuff is sort of breaking through the mold.
They do a good job with that stuff, yeah.
But outside of that, this year they haven't really had as many hits. And this should be when they should be excelling, because most people, especially now with the Delta variant, people are more likely to want to stay home and watch stuff on streaming, they should be, kind of breaking out of the mold like they did with Tiger King last year. And it doesn't seem like that's been the case from what I've seen this year, outside of, maybe one or two examples.
I mean, there's like brand new cherry flavor that just came out. I haven't seen it. I mean, I've heard whatever about it. I
heard it's good, but
I haven't heard a ton. I was really burned by Gunpowder Milkshake. I thought I just watched Kate this past week. We might talk about it on the show. I thought that was really generic, even though I really like Mary Elizabeth Winstead.
Dang, I was actually looking forward to that.
I know. Hey, still check it out for yourself. You might like it's grisly. Like it's very dark and violent, but it's just one of those movies where you're like, I know what this is doing, and it's just not a lot of surprises. And then Afterlife of the Party is coming out this weekend. But here's the common denominator: like nobody's talking about these movies. Nobody's excited for these movies to come out. There's no beginning, middle, end of the marketing for these things. Netflix just like pushes them out, and I never hear about stuff. I hear about stuff from press releases and other critics. That's it. And like, I should be like exposed to, like, I should go on Twitter and see like tons of stuff coming, people chattering, people talking, people from all stripes talking about Netflix stuff. I don't at all, ever.
Yeah, well, that's what I was trying to say before with like the Stranger Things or Tiger King. Like those should be, they see those as like they're like what all of their things should be, but those are the exceptions rather than the norm. Like those obviously are just like things that they didn't really promote, just kind of quietly released, and then they just eventually just exploded. Thanks to social media, and they kind of want like all their shows or movies to have that effect, and sometimes they do, but more often than not they don't. But the fact they expect that to happen for almost all of their movies or shows outside of like the award pedigree stuff.
See, I don't know if they expect it. I think that it's a numbers game. I think that they just put out a ton of stuff and just wait for the thing to organically break out. Whereas and it's annoying because you have to watch a ton of crap to get to the good stuff. Because there is great stuff that comes out on Netflix. I mean, Rurouni Kenshin, The Beginning, came out on Netflix a few weeks ago. It's amazing. It's so good. Like I was watching and I couldn't believe how good it was. And I was like, nobody outside of like the staff at the Young Folks, because we were chatting about it, knows about this. And it's just wild to me. And then I think that that's the big difference. Netflix just like pushes a lot of content out, waits for people to pick it up organically. But then where I think HBO Max and Amazon to an extent and Apple TV, what they do, they curate stuff so much better. So when something comes out for those platforms, I don't know, it just feels a little bit more of like an event. It's a spectrum. Like some things are bigger events than others, to be totally certain. Like not everything is hyped up as much as it should be. Invincible is a good example of that on Amazon. Like it kind of had a slow burn. Like they didn't really push it super hard, but then they realized people were loving it, and then it sort of started to pick up.
Yeah, well, I mean, to tie us back to Hulu, I think they have in the past, or at least last year, been better about kind of breaking some of their movies out in the mold. An example would obviously be, as you mentioned, Palm Springs, which could have been an example of a movie that sort of came and went on streaming, but they, really kind of bolstered it up, and they took this, fairly small Sundance movie and turned it into one of the more well-seen movies of 2020. And I don't think Vacation Friends is going to have a similar situation, just because, like we said, it's a more mediocre film, and it doesn't really have as much going for it critically or commercially. But I do think Hulu, if they put their efforts to it, can make some of their products stand out more because they have less competition. But at the same time, they're under Disney's thumb, and it does kind of seem like they see Hulu as like the also ran streaming service that they have outside of Disney Plus, or the one that they're not 100% sure what to do with, and they kind of make it their miscellaneous streaming service. And I feel like that's sort of frustrating right now. But yeah, I don't think, with all that said, I don't think Vacation Friends is going to break the mold.
I don't either. And we can move toward the end of this, and we've been chatting, because why not? But I do want to get to Hulu, because I want to say some good things about Hulu, and that's, you're right. They do put effort into the marketing, and I don't think they come out with too much stuff. If you actually look at their list of like films and documentaries, it's really impressive. And they have a really good balance between films that they pick up from festivals that are actually like genuinely good movies, that they do a good job of, like, I think that they're one of the better. I see ads for Hulu stuff on Twitter. I see ads for Hulu on other social media platforms. I think they have a good social media presence, and I think that they choose things that are easy to like turn into memes, and to turn it like some stuff that came out this past year, like Plan B, probably my favorite comedy of 2021. I think that they had a good marketing campaign behind it, but the marketing campaign wasn't traditional. they put a lot of money into social media, and I think it played off for them because that movie did pretty reasonably well. Palm Springs did well, as you mentioned. They've had like little things, I wouldn't say like Big Time Adolescence or False Positive, or, I think one of the big misses for them was probably United States versus Billie Holiday, which they were obviously hoping was going to be like this big, awards thing. But then they'll have something like Run, which is pretty good. And then, I think the best Hulu movie, in my opinion, is Palm Springs. I think we would disagree, I guess. In terms of documentaries, they rule. I mean, Hulu has awesome documentaries. They always do a great job of bringing on docs from, festivals. Like Minding the Gap is one of their best ever.
Yeah.
They had one of the Fire ones, I think Fire Fried. They had Homeroom, which just came out on Hulu. Yeah. Which really good documentary.
Painter
WeWork was a solid one. Kid 90, I'm Greta.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Painter and the Thief, didn't they have that one as well from last year?
Which one?
Is it called Painter and the Thief? What was the one?
Oh, yeah, The Painter and the Thief. I don't know if that was that. They might have co-distributed it because they co-distributed Nomadland, right? And Summer of Soul.
Right, yeah.
So Nomadland, Summer of Soul, two fantastic movies. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
So Hulu's good.
Yeah, the weird thing though about Hulu is that it's a mix of like curated stuff, or at least like feels curated. Like here's stuff we put thought into like marketing and picking for our streaming service, and then a bunch of like weird random indies that are just like, oh yeah, we also have this now. And you
we
just
can't put this on
like,
Disney Plus. So
you just kind of like scan it. It's like, oh, that's on here now, and that's on here. Like I remember like like a bunch of movies are like, yeah, maybe I'll check that out at some point. It's just like, oh, that's on there now. Like Zappa, I just recently watched on there because I was just like, oh yeah, that was one I meant to watch, and I guess unceremoniously it just came onto Hulu, so I guess I'll watch this now.
Did you like Zappa?
It was all right. I enjoyed it. Yeah,
that was a very chill movie.
Yeah, I mean, I felt like it should have been a miniseries, but I thought it was pretty good. All
right, Will, it's the moment of truth. What do you think Vacation Friends got on Rotten Tomatoes? Here we go.
Actually, I might have to back out of this one because
what? You see it already?
Yeah, yesterday I saw it was like 61%.
It's 60% now. It was higher. It was 66% for a while. What about, you probably didn't see the audience score. How about that?
I did not know. I'm going to guess, because it's a raunchy R-rated movie, I'm going to guess 69%.
49%.
Oh, really? The audiences aren't digging it?
That's pretty low.
Yeah.
The audience showed up and they said no thanks.
Are people still mad at John Cena?
About what?
Like the whole China thing?
The whole China thing? What happened in China?
We can talk about that off the air.
Yeah, I don't know. You have to fill me in on that one, Chief. No cinema score for this one, obviously, since it's Hulu release. I don't think it came out in any limited theaters, as far as I understand it. But you can watch it now on Hulu. Pretty easy to stream, and it's only 103 minutes. And yeah, that's all I got to say about Vacation Friends. I need a vacation and I need friends, but I don't need this movie.
Yeah, I mean, that was like an hour-long discussion on a movie we both just thought was okay.
Yeah, pretty typical. Hey, we only, I feel like we only talked about the actual movie for like 20 minutes. That's fine.
Sure. Yeah, this is a tangent episode. If people enjoy those, or if they hate them, I'm sorry.
It's a little treat. It's a little surprise. They're like, I don't really care about Vacation Friends, but I just want to see what John and Will are up to. That's fine. And, maybe I'll get a recommendation. They listen, and then they get this whole discussion out of it. They're like, whoa, it's like opening a pack of Starburst and lobster.
What about the listeners who are like, I don't know how I feel about this movie. I need someone to break it down for an hour to really contextualize my thoughts.
Whoa.
Oh, great.
We went 54 minutes.
Right.
Well, hey, I you know what? At least we front loaded it. It's not like they were sitting around waiting.
Sure.
Thank you so much for listening to our show. Be sure to subscribe to Cinemaholics on your favorite podcast app of choice, or find us on YouTube. See you all next time.